So Dave, I want to start off not talking about what district is, but turning the clock back to day zero. Okay, so the day before.
My birthday?
Yeah, no, not that far back.
Okay.
Although, yeah, we'll get there. We'll see.
Okay.
You know,
I just
we'll
want to make
pull a
sure
couch up,
how far we're going back.
Yeah.
Okay, day zero of.
Day zero, yeah. So the day before, figuratively, you got the vision for this place.
Mm-hmm.
How were you spending your life? Where was your focus? Who were you back then?
So, it depends, right? There's a day in December when I sort of like had this aha moment for this particular place.
Right.
But the concept of doing something collaborative, bringing together creative people, business people in a single sort of collective is something that I thought of years ago. So it really depends on what you mean by day zero. But if you want to talk about December, I mean, I am a crazy entrepreneur. Like I love business. So what I was doing the day before was running Digital Surgeons, working on my clients' businesses. If I was doing any strategy on any particular clients, managing the folks here, and probably in some way, shape, or form looking at opportunities, whether it was a investment opportunity, a startup opportunity, or even a real estate opportunity. It could have been like that. Thinking about stuff. My brain's always sort of going.
Yeah.
That was day zero.
Okay. So then take us back to the original day zero. So when you first had this notion of a place like this, what were you doing that had that get triggered?
Well, you had sort of the space we worked in is considered the agency world. So it's sort of consultancy, design, service-based businesses. And I thought that the industry was changing. I wanted to figure out a way to sort of build a huge stable of talented people around us without having the overhead of a big agency with a lot of costs. And I thought that creative people wanted to be together, which is true. That was a decade ago, and today you see those studio houses, Erector Square, and so on and so forth, sort of happening. So I was just always looking at really hacking. Right, we didn't have any money.
Right.
So that you're talking about 10, 11 years ago, we literally had started Digital Surgeons with $5,000, and we had no. Everything, every piece, every dollar we made went back into the business. So we were really hungry. Yeah. I think when you're hungry, you tend to think more outside the box, especially because you have to sort of figure out interesting ways to feed yourself, to grow your business. Especially in our particular situation, because we didn't want to take investor money and we didn't want to take on any debt. So we really wanted everything to be organic. So I think that allowed us to be more creative. I mean, I try to always live my life like that, though.
Yeah.
So
you're working with creatives. You're working in the agency world, and it's a traditional agency world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're seeing this kind of emergent need that at certain levels always been there for creatives to be together. Yeah. So what as you say? Now let's fast forward to December. What as you say? I'm going to build that. What's the possibility that as you say, that's something I'm going to do versus something I'm going to wish would happen?
So I saw people doing. So when I thought of that 10 years ago, I actually tried to get it done. But I had to make a decision. So I went to the city, I found the property, I went to the city, and they said that they liked the idea. There were certain people inside the city of New Haven that I had sort of pitched this to. Right. And they said to me that they would back us in some way, shape, or form, whether that was through some tax credits or some funding or some facade program or some kind of government entity that they might be able to give us to drive some dollars to make it a more efficient, more lucrative investment for us to take the risk or to reduce the risk. The problem was at the time, it was 2006, 2007, 2008. So now you're talking about the real estate is just absolutely in the toilet. We're just starting the recession. and the landlord was super over leveraged on the building, and that we wanted to use, which was close enough to downtown, but outside. You'll notice a pattern where our offices have always been around the downtown instead of directly in the center. And I wanted to pay $700,000 for the building, and he wanted $1.5 million. So it just didn't work out. So it was a failure.
Yeah.
From there, things happened. The Grove happened. WeWork happened, and we saw sort of pieces of our puzzle start to come together, leading up to December. So you saw other people doing small parts of, whether it's co-working or bringing communities together, or creative collective groups and that kind of thing. It was sort of happening in different ways.
Yeah. So people are innovating around some of the transactional aspects of what you saw, but the integrated thing,
No one had put it
no
together.
one put it together, right?
No way.
Okay. So December, what, 2014?
Yep.
13? 14?
14.
24. Okay, so December 2014, you guys had an office across the street.
Yep.
Okay. So what happens?
So the office across the street was owned by a father-son team out of Brooklyn, and they were neglecting the building, and it was just a bad situation. It was the second bad landlord that I had, which is another thing that's sort of driving, right? I'm starting to pick up on the fact that landlords can be very difficult, and they're some of them tend to be, overly capitalistic, meaning that they're very greedy. Some of them just don't give a shit, right? Maybe they're upside down on the property. Maybe something happened where you just never know people's why. So these guys were not investing in the building. They were being pretty shiesty about the stuff that they said that they were going to get done inside the property. They had a bad reputation that started to surface in Google through the reviews and that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden they put the building up for auction, and some other guy from New York comes in and buys it, and immediately comes to us and says, hey, we're gonna sell, I love you guys, you pay your rent all the time, you're growing, but we're gonna turn this into a Costco. So I was like, I was immediately like, holy shit, this is bad, because I thought that the building was just awesome, right? It was high ceiling. It was like this: high ceilings, big windows, awesome view, all these sort of components that I really loved about it, right? It was very, very futuristic and modern, even though it was really, in bad shape. So I tried to sit down with the guy and I said, hey, listen, I've been around for a long time. I'm on the boards of economic development. I know what's missing in the state. And I basically just tried to give him a little bit of vision of what I had known I wanted to do. And he just sort of was like, that's a great idea, but I'm going to turn it into a Costco.
Right.
So I had 22 months on the lease. I'm the CEO of a business that's growing. I said, I got to move these guys. I got to think about it now, which is not what most people do. They just sort of wait till the very last minute and then hustle and just wind up in a bad situation. But I really believe that space is important. Like, we had really bad spaces, but they were always a little bit cooler than everyone else's bad spaces. So I had gone on a journey to start looking at spaces. Spaces to rent, spaces to buy. I didn't want a landlord anymore. And it was really difficult because there's not a lot of property in New Haven, at least here in New Haven, there's not a lot of property that was available that would make sense financially for us. Either because you had at the same time as this was happening, you had a housing boom in New Haven. So New Haven at one point had the highest occupancy rates for rental apartments in the country. So everybody wanted, once you hear that, the occupancy rates are the highest in the country, it's a trigger. Go in, buy property, make rentals, rent it out. Rent out residential spaces. So commercial buildings started to turn into residential. That's when you see 360 State Street and the boom downtown on Crown and Corsair and the old Wells Fargo Bank. Everything turned into residential because they knew that they'd make a ton of money, and they have, right? Corsair sold, they made 20 million, and this and that. So you either had people that were holding on to buildings expecting to make a boatload of money on an exit, like just to hold on to it, or you had it's an old industrial space, New Haven, so you had a lot of dirty spaces too.
Right.
So now you got to invest in remediation, which I didn't know nothing about. I didn't know nothing about real estate, to be honest with you. My father did bullshit real estate when I was young. He did. I mean, like, you know, it's in comparison, like, I shouldn't say bullshit. It was real estate. He was successful, but it was like onesie twosie apartments and buildings that he would flip and make money on. It wasn't like he was doing a $25 million development. So I had no idea what was going on. And then we were across the street. So I was looking at, that night, I think it was like December 14th of 2014. I was looking at the satellite image of this property from Google satellite. And I saw the river in the back and the highway on the side and the train on the side. And I said, holy, it's like an island. And it looks like a fulcrum between two neighborhoods, right? Like it's like a piece of land holding two completely different neighborhoods together, East Rock and Fairhaven. And I was fascinated by that. And then from there, it just, everything, a decade plus of research and people thinking and talking just sort of poured out in 10 minutes.
Wow.
And I called Eric and I was like, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
And he's a New Havener through and through, loves it here, did a ton of real estate here and lived here with his family. And he was just like, that's a dope idea. We should try and make that happen. And then,
yeah. No, just how you describe that, David, you know, just what you saw in the aerial image, it's something I've just found over the years. A way I'd interpret it is you trained yourself how to see a certain way. And so, you know, you've already just in this conversation in 10 minutes talked about, you know, kind of bringing things together, bringing communities together, right? And that's how you see the visual, right? There's 1,000 ways you could see that aerial shot. And would you see it as a fulcrum between two neighborhoods?
Yeah.
Right? And I just find this pattern repeatedly. People train themselves how to see. And then some folks get locked into seeing that way, and some folks use that way of seeing to create. Right? Does that sit for you? That this is part of how you just see things, how to bring stuff together?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's,
That was a slow pitch. Go ahead, hit that one out.
I think it's the Ray Dalio referred to it as the shaper, right? Sort of we've had this conversation before, so he's definitely leading in this conversation. So I always talk about the world is noisy, right? So you got billions of bits of data that's happening, energy, little signals that are happening to you all the time. And then those turn into studies say between 12 and say 70,000 thoughts. And a thought could be like, my foot's itching right now and I gotta scratch it or whatever it is. But that's per day. So if you tune into I always talk about tuning into frequencies, right? So like I'm tuning into opportunities, I'm tuning into the way in which people speak about the cities, the problems. I'll take those and I'll sort of connect them to the things that I'm hearing about in the state and the disconnections in the state and the disparities between the cities and the suburbs. And then I'm like, okay, so, and then it all sort of levers up to this one big image in my head, which is that Connecticut's this really disconnected community. So if you're going to connect communities, you can do it on these granular levels. So it's basically just connecting dots, right? It's like, oh, these go together, these go together, these go together. Let's group those and put them over here. And that sort of becomes the guiding light or the center point for the concept, right? And so what I'm doing is I'm basically just putting blinders on, and I just ignore a lot of bullshit. Right? I'm sorry for the cursing, by the way. I drop a lot of bombs. I'm being super good right now. So I don't see a lot of stuff, right? I don't see a lot of noise, right? People get caught up in noise.
Yeah.
Because I don't see a lot of noise, I connect dots super fast. And that's just, you know, that's, I think that's, you know, that's a skill that I've honed over the years, obviously.
Yeah, that's great. I've always found that it's not the smartest person in the room that wins.
Yeah, because I'm
dumb as shit. It's not the most
shit.
powerful person in the room that wins. Yeah. We're going to get back to that story and the bullshit real estate story too, but look for a little later. It's not the smartest person in the room that wins. It's not the most powerful person in the room that wins. It's the person that's clearest and most committed. All right. And again, it's part of what I hear you saying. This kind of blinders. Right. I'm just clear. This is what I'm out for.
Yeah.
And I'm going to look for that. Yeah. So let me ask you a different question.
But I also know, but the thing is, like, the blinders can be dangerous to a lot of people too. So the part of it, because I hear people all the time say, like, where they just won't give up on an idea, but you can see that the idea is dead or that they don't have what it's going to take.
Yeah.
So there's this very sort of thin line between I'm going to bulldog this over the finish line versus I need to reevaluate.
Right.
Like if you hear this in the story, I had this idea 10 years ago and I pursued it for a little bit and I hit a wall and I knew it wasn't the right time. So I let it go. And then it came back. Right? And it came back a lot easier because it was the right time. And you have so being able to realize when those times are happening, when things are starting to align. And we've talked about this a lot. Like I believe a lot in energy. Like I think that a lot of this stuff happens for a lot of for reasons. And I could tell you tons of stories of serendipity and luck, and I tweet about it and all this stuff. But I really, really believe that a lot has to do with the energy that I have and the stuff that I put out there, which I'm sure we're going to get to at some point.
Yeah, we'll get to. There's something I want to get to later, but since you're raising it, I want to ask the question now. And you've spoken to it partly. What's the razor? How do you cut off? Like, so for example, I remember, a few months back, you were exploring an idea about putting a helicopter service in place to get rid of, pain in the neck to get from New York to here, yeah? So David hatches this idea. We got Sikorsky right next door. Let's have a helicopter service, 30 minutes back and forth, right? But I watched you hatch that, explore it, kill it in, I think, 6 days.
Yeah.
So what's the razor? How do you cut stuff like that off before it sucks up so much energy and time that it destroys something that's real?
I just go hard at it real fast, right? I want to prove or disprove it as quickly as possible in my mind, right? I don't fall. That's the key. A lot of people fall in love with their, they drink their own Kool-Aid. Versus me, I'm like, if this works, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be happy. It's going to be a great asset to the community. It's another feather in my cap for what I've done for the community and then for the brand and all that stuff. So it's another great angle.
Right.
And if it's profitable, right?
Yeah.
It's a win.
It's great.
Right? Everybody wins.
Yeah.
And then I connected to the right people as soon as possible, and I made the time. Right? Like I always tell people, you have to make the time. It's like, if I say I want Al to do something, I want to ask Al a question. If I could send you an email, or I could literally pull my phone out right now and text you or call you in front of all these people and try and get the answer right now. Most people pace it out. I don't want my brain power to focus on it any more than it needs to do. So I'm just like, let me just get rid of this real quick, or see if I can get it to the next level. And truth be told is they emailed me like 2 weeks ago, not Sikorsky, but someone in Sikorsky that realized that there's another way to go about this, potentially, and she emailed me and said she was going to connect me with somebody to maybe get it done. So it's not 100, So
it's great.
But you saw me like 6 days, and then I was like, I'm off it. And then all of a sudden, 2.5 months later, it came back to me. And then maybe it dies again. I don't know.
Yeah. There's this chasing that people do instead of letting stuff come to them, right? And what you're speaking to is chase it hard, know when to quit, and if it's real, it's going to come back.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great. I love what you said, and I work in developing young practitioners, organizational practitioners, consultants, and one of the things that happens consistently, even before they started working, is they fall in love with their solutions, right? And what I'm hearing you say is, don't fall in love with your answer, fall in love with the problem, and then the solution, it's not going to work. Helicopter gone, next. Right? But fall in love with the problem. How do I connect New York and New Haven so people can come here to go to school at Holberton and do whatever else great things are available here, right? It's great.
And I'd also add, talk about dot connecting, right? So how I got to that problem, you had the Tweed conversation happening, which is, can we extend Tweed so that Tweed can get more flights to more places? And that's been like a 20-year shit show, right? And you had that happening pretty heavy, hot and heavy last year, and then it got squashed, and it was like all this political nonsense, and I got pretty like savvy on what happened there. So here I am seeing what Tweed has cooking, and I'm like, all right. And then at the same time, I'm hearing all about the trains, right? That in 2 years we can get a deal that from Milford down to New York, we can eat into everyone's town and get another 2 tracks, and we'll get a faster train that can go from New Haven to New York City in an hour. And I'm thinking, that's the dumbest shit I have ever heard of in my life. Right? A faster train. Does anybody know the famous Henry Ford story? Henry Ford saying, he said, if I listened to the customer, I would have made faster horses. So if we get the train done in 2 years, politically, that puts us at 2020. And then in 2030, we have a train that gets us from New Haven to New York in 1 hour. Hyperloop, which is Elon Musk's little invention that someone decided to take on, is getting piloted right now at 750 miles per hour, which is literally New Haven to New York in 13 minutes. And we're talking about 13 years away, getting there in an hour. Right? You've already got trains that are doing 200 miles an hour. Right? So to me, I'm thinking to myself, that's like coming out with IPTV in 5 years.
Right.
It's already out, right? There's already technology out, and we're talking about that. So I found it stupid, but I was like, well, Tweed is an airport, and Uber's talking about like these like places that can get masses of people out of like stadiums and fly them. So you got 30,000, 50,000, 70,000 people at a football game, and you need to get them out of there really quickly. So Uber's patenting technology now for like vertical airports that would go on top of the stadium, and then people would just load up, and you shoot them out into the areas that they got to go, and then you can get them into other Ubers from there. So I was thinking to myself, well, we got Sikorsky, and then all of a sudden the dots connect, and it's like, why don't we at least have a conversation? And why has no one had that conversation? And why are we not talking to Elon Musk and getting tunnels underneath the towns instead of fighting with them to give us a little bit of railway?
Yeah, the real pernicious thing is that 13 years and we're going to get New York down to an hour is packaged as innovation, right? It's packaged as that's a big accomplishment.
We were having that conversation in an innovation council meeting,
Yeah.
and it was the first one, and I said, "What are we doing?"
Yeah.
I said, this is innovation, and we're talking about faster trains. Everyone else is thinking about air and tunnels in the water. Long Island Sound is useless. There's no lobsters in there no more.
Right.
Use it.
Right.
Put a tunnel in there.
Right.
That's how my brain works.
Our friend Bun at Meas will tell you there are some good invasive crabs and seaweed,
Yeah, okay,
but there are no
invasive
lobsters.
Crabs and seaweed, yeah. Something you can...
Yeah, no, it's good. Listen, this is
agree.
what's killing.
If you don't know Bun at Mia's,
Bun at Meas.
he's literally world renowned.
I actually, when we close out, I was going to recommend, you're going to hit a late night special hour, 9 o'clock.
He's the real
Go see
deal.
Buns on House Street, the first sustainable sushi restaurant on the planet, right here in New Haven.
He's got a Vice documentary about him and the whole 9 yards.
$6.50, you can get a plate of sustainable sushi. Late night, after 9 o'clock.
Disclaimer, I don't own a single percentage of his business.
I should. I eat there 4 nights a week, but I don't.
That'd be interesting, right?
Yeah.
How much you eat at a place if you could actually get a percentage of it?
I don't want a percentage of it. We've had this. Listen,
I know, but has anybody ever tried that?
Listen, if we talk about it long enough, I'm suspecting somebody will.
No. Not anymore. I got too much stuff going.
You got too much stuff going on, yeah. So listen, this is what's, a big part of what's killing our larger corporations is this kind of thinking, this kind of innovation committee that takes 9 months to come up with a plan that yields 13 years. We're going to, make a 30% increase on the issue, right? So I want to dig into then. So you get this vision. You see this place is a fulcrum between 2 neighborhoods, right? I'm doing this. I call Eric. He's in. Let's go do this, right? What's if you had to characterize the nature of the kind of entrenched thinking, kind of the core patterns of entrenched thinking over the last 18 months, 2 years that you've had to deal with, how would you characterize that? You can get into specifics you want, but you don't have to. I'm just interested in nature of the entrenched thinking?
So I think that it depends on which group you're looking at, right? If you're looking at it from a sort of citizen, most citizens are just down on Connecticut. So that's like a very entrenched sort of way of thinking. Just Connecticut sucks, blah, 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 and that's like negative thinking. You've got governments that, I had people sort of listening to the idea, and in the beginning they were positive. But then when they saw that I actually had the audacity to run, I don't think they expected that. And then 30 days later, first it was like, oh, this is the best idea we've ever heard of, and for that location, and this is going to be awesome for New Haven, and blah, 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 blah. 30 days later, we did a shitload of work, and then all of a sudden I got, it's going to be political. I don't know if this is if it's going to work. It might take a few years to happen, and all this stuff. And I sat there just looking at this person or these people. I'm not going to.
That's good. It's a good
I'm
filter.
not going to burn any bridges yet. But it's getting to a point where I might.
Yeah.
And I just walked out of there, and I literally said to Eric, I said, what the hell just happened? Like, I go into something and I'm expecting like next steps. I want to like just hustle and break through walls and do what I got to do. And I walked away thinking to myself like, this is a great idea, and we just put all this time in, and we just basically got nowhere.
Yeah.
And then it occurred, and then that's when I started to see a lot of that sort of stuck feel that people have, and why it's there. And I just said to myself, like, I can't allow this to happen. And that's when I just started calling people and and sitting down with people and putting that time in, that 6 days that you talked about. Yeah. I put my 6 days in, and I went hard. Like, I probably had meetings all day long.
So did you call the people who were stuck, or did you go around and find others who could help move this thing?
I went everywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody, I would talk to I tell everybody what I'm going to do, because it keeps me accountable. Yeah. It puts it in the universe, and you're going to be lucky enough to where someone's going to say, "Oh, I know what to do," and that's what happens, right? So you talk to 100 people, and 2 people go, "Oh, I know who you should talk to," and then you talk to 2 more people, and those people go, "This is how you do this." And that's how I find things really, really quickly.
Right. This is again another just calling card of folks who do impossible things. Right. They're fundamentally unstoppable. Most human beings are stoppable. They get to a certain threshold where it's like, okay, well, I'm not crossing that line, right? And unstoppable is not, in my experience, belligerence. Right. Belligerence gets you out of the game, but it's just a willingness to not stop. Okay, it can't go. It's like water, the old Taoist teaching of water, right? I mean, water will find a way around, under, over, doesn't matter. But it doesn't try to fight the obstacle. It just finds a way. Yeah.
See, you know all the like really intelligent, smart people that say really great things.
Yeah.
And I just go to like Jay-Z saying difficult takes a day, impossible takes a week.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm inspired by different people.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a different place, so I just...
We talked about it. We actually grew up in the same place. I just,
Yes.
I just pretend to be smart.
No, because you're much more academic about the people you quote, and I'm like Jigga and...
I don't know. We can turn this into a hip-hop conversation.
Maybe.
Listen, you mix another one of these.
By the way, I insisted that we were going to drink old fashions while we did this, because he said, the old school way of doing this, we'd have this conversation over some whiskey, and I was like, say no more.
When we used to...
I brought all my ingredients from the house, and I made what do you think?
Solid, it's good.
We went to what bar was that?
Anchor spot.
We went to the Anchor, and this guy was like
yeah, you're on tape.
His name was Bootleg, right?
Bootleg. Yeah.
And he was a scientist with this old fashioned, so I asked him for the recipe, and I copied it.
Good.
So,
I thought you were going somewhere else.
No,
yeah, I love Bootleg, love Anchor. Again, another great New Haven spot. Yeah. Yeah, we used to, when we ran this back in New York, there was a thing. I'm a bourbon collector, and so there'd be we'd share a bourbon. I mentioned that to David, and of course, and so this is the state of my life, right? 50 years old, at work for a couple of decades, doing what I think is important stuff, and I got a text this afternoon. Hey Al, can you pick up an orange on the way in for the old fashioned? This is where my career is. I'm a fruit runner.
No. I made the drinks, huh?
You did make the drink. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So tell me about, when we work with folks on the leadership side in the kind of 2-year incubator we have, or on the client side, Breakthrough has 4 criteria to it, right? Impossible has 4 criteria to it. A, from where you start, it is fundamentally impossible. There's no realistic way to assume you can get this done, okay?
Okay.
B, it's bigger than your self-interest. It includes your self-interest, but it's inherently bigger than your self-interest. C, once achieved, it's going to outlive you. Inherently, the nature of the thing is going to live beyond you. So you step away, you get hit by a truck, by the nature of the thing, you've changed something permanently. D is the one I want to ask you about. D is that the Breakthrough inherently makes your heart sing. It's not something that you treat as a good idea. It's not something that you like, but it is fundamentally something that for you moves you, right? So I've heard that from you a lot in the time I've known you, and I haven't heard from you yet tonight. What about this whole thing moves you?
So I have, there's some uniqueness to where I come from, right? So I don't have a typical upbringing, right? I grew up in New York City. I have very mixed blood, so I have like every single part of the world comes up in my DNA except for India and Australia, and I don't think anyone's from Australia, right? I think that you had to like come from somewhere else to get to Australia. So I've been around so many people. I'm literally Native American. My father was born in South America. Come from Spain. I have all these ethnicities. I have sort of all this way of growing up in this sort of melting pot. And I was around like blue collar people. I was around rich blue collar people. I was around the criminal element in New York because at the time in the 80s and 90s, New York City was wild. I've just seen a lot of stuff, and I have a unique perspective on people and communities. Or even like the people that I get along with the most tend to be the most street, most authentic, most down to earth people, where there's vulnerability and strength in who they are all the time. And I also have this incredible urge to always try to do something that's got good energy around it. Like I always talk about like, and it comes from my father actually. My father used to always say, whenever things were going bad, he would say in his really thick Spanish accent, "That's bullshit." You could literally be like, "Dad, I got cancer." He'd be like, "That's bullshit." And it wasn't, and when I was young, I misinterpreted what he was doing. Like it was just sort of him discounting it, which is the typical thing. It's what my wife does to me when I tell her it's bullshit to whatever she's thinking about. But really what it was is that he didn't want you to get stuck in the negative stuff. And I feel like so many people were stuck that I felt like I could, through this project, through the momentum of District, through the businesses that come out. I mean, like already we've had amazing achievements. We've had patents in this building. We've had fundraisers in this building. We've had, the CFO of Google was here. Like we've had so much happen already, and it's only year 1, right? So it was really for me to show the state, and I wanted to go and permeate to all 4 corners, that it's not steady habits anymore. That Connecticut doesn't mean what it meant yesterday. It means what you want it to mean tomorrow. So it was like, and imagine doing that through a piece of real estate. Like imagine doing that through a bus depot or a piece of land. Like that to me, and the more people that come and say, I can't believe this is Connecticut, or I see the awe that people have when they like read about it or heard about it, read about it, saw it on TV, saw a picture of it, saw it on social media, and then they walk through the doors and they're just like, holy shit. And it's not even that it's that crazy. It's just, it evokes emotion. It has energy to it. People say that they feel something, right? Or I've had people walk in and say, oh my God, it feels like Silicon Valley. And then I'll say, have you ever been to Silicon Valley? And they're like, no. And I'm just like, okay. But that's, you know what I mean? Like that says something. Or I can't believe this is Connecticut, right? Like that's, you've heard it. You've heard people come in here and like it's so cool to see that
I
we
heard
have
it tonight. I literally heard it tonight.
Yeah.
Two people in the audience, I won't call them out, there are two people in the audience that said, we're in Connecticut, we're thinking, do we want to stay? But if Connecticut's, literally, they said, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but they said, if Connecticut's got stuff like this, I mean, it'd be great to stay. Literally tonight.
What I think is the best part is that you get to build stuff like this, right? And it deserves to be here. Like this is, whether this is the middle between Stanford and Hartford or it's the middle between New York and Boston, if they have cool shit, we should be the mecca of cool. We have so much stuff going on. So I love the fact that it gives me the opportunity to build and to create, right? This is what it is. It's all about creation.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was at a town meeting last week, this branding meeting, right, that we talked about for the town. It was actually interesting. And so the two observations I made were A, that I've traveled a ton. I've had the great fortune I've been to 42 states. I've been to everywhere in Western Europe. I've had real blessed with the opportunity to travel, right? Mm-hmm. I've never experienced a city that, like New Haven, that provides you legitimate access to city, world-class food, world-class art, world-class theater, at the scale of community, right? Like you can engage with this place as a community. You can't engage with New York as a community. You can engage with a neighborhood as community, maybe, and these days, and that's questionable, right? So I'm with you. It's a really interesting thing that we have here.
Murray Moss was here last week.
Yeah.
You know who he is?
I don't think so.
He's famous. So he's got a book out called "Please Do Not Touch This." And so he's considered one of the greatest purveyors of industrial design, and his store was considered like one of the best world-class design stores in Manhattan in the 90s through like mid-2000. So one of the bookstores, independent bookstores up in Madison, R.J. Julia, they did a sort of like this here between the two writers, Murray and Franklin. And Franklin said, because they were like Manhattanites, like, you know, like design snobs. They sold $200,000 pieces, like crazy stuff. And now they live in Hamden. And they said, like, why did you do it? And they said, you know, we wanted something different. We wanted a specific type of house that had like the design background that we had. So they found this like crazy house because you got such an amazing architecture school here in Yale. So one of the architects came and did something crazy in Hamden. And they said, but what was most amazing is that in 25 years living in a building in Manhattan, they never met a neighbor. Like they were 25B, right, 25th floor, and they never met A or C. In 25 years, never met A or C. And they said within 1 week, every neighbor on their block had stopped by their house and said hello, and made them feel welcome. And they were like, this is different, but it's different in a good way. I sort of know that too. Mine was different. Like growing up in Queens in a building, the whole building knew who we were. My father was also the superintendent, so that made sense too. Like they had to call us to get in their house if they got locked out. So
neighborhoods like that, I also imagine they're more kind of insular and protective of the thing, right? So a last set of questions, I want to open it up to them, but just before we get to that, so one of the ways I can read something you said about 10 minutes ago is that basically our relationship is you know, you filling in the missing South Asian DNA that you...
Pretty much.
Pretty much, that's it. That's the only thing, Now you got a full genetic spectrum. Right?
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess. No, well, I have Chinese.
Yeah.
I do. I'm 4% Chinese.
Yeah.
I'm 10%, 9%, 10% Native American.
Yeah.
Some 4% Northern African. Yeah, I guess just to Asia.
I,
So you fill it in.
I've always gone by the mindset that I'm 100%
And
me.
but you do bring all that to my life, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it, right? I got the tea here, the
Yeah.
holy basil,
The holy basil, the turmeric.
yeah,
There you
the
go.
turmeric, yeah, I got it at the
Sazerac.
house,
Yeah, there you go. So last set of questions, and we'll open up to them about you. Okay. Well, again, another just thing I've learned over the years is that you cannot take on breakthrough work. You can't take on doing the impossible and get out of it alive. That, I used to tell clients this, and they think it was a joke. I'd say, listen, one of the agreements we have to have is at the end of 3 years. I'd worked with people 3 years. That's how long it took to do a transformation. I'd say at the end of this, you realize you're going to die, and if you don't, I may have to kill you, right? Because you can't be who you are and create something fundamentally new. So, what was that for you? What did you have to die to? Who's the David that had to kind of get left behind, not because there's anything wrong or bad about him, but just because it wasn't appropriate for what was next?
I had to let go of so my baggage. I realized that actually the breakthrough was this year.
Yeah.
For me, my personal breakthrough.
Yeah.
I realized that I had carried along who I was when I was a kid, where I grew up, the people I grew up around, sort of the lessons that I learned from those people, which made me who I was, but gave me the crutches and the insecurities that I had today. And I always led with that.
Yeah.
I was and part of it was also that I never wanted to feel. I didn't want to give the impression that I was more important than anybody, because I didn't feel that way, especially if I'm going to be in the community role, right? Like, I'm trying to do something really big, right? And the last thing I want is people to think like I'm rich or this or that. So I would lead with I grew up poor. And Spanish, African, and Chinese.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to, but that wasn't the crutch. The crutch was sort of I met with someone and they said, you got to take that young man that was scared of the street or fought in the street or did these things to grow up, and you have to show him who you are today and show him how you think today and how that didn't hurt him and he doesn't have anything to worry about anymore, right? Because in New York, you could walk through the street, you could walk down a street. When I was growing up, there could be 50 people on a corner of a street that you have to pass to get home. And if you walk through there, there's a chance that you're going to get the shit kicked out of you, or if you walk around, you might get chased because they're like, oh, he walked around us. So you had to make decisions in real time to survive. And now I don't have to do that stuff anymore, but I think about it all the time, and I had to put all that stuff and just say, I'm okay now, I'm safe, I can walk any neighborhood, I'm not afraid, and all this stuff, and no one's trying to hurt me, so I don't need to be so, I don't have to have as much bravado or any of that stuff, and I can just sort of be the creative guy that really cares about the things that he cares about. And that happened, and my relationships changed. We've talked about it, literally my relationship with my COO, my CFO, my former partner, everything changed because I think it was the final piece to show people that I didn't have armor, right? That I had it was my vulnerability. So it's exactly what I said I love about people that are authentic and have a strength and a vulnerability to them. When they're typically from the street or from or what have you. It was what I needed to show people. Yeah. And that guy I don't say he died, but he let me live. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. It makes total sense.
I didn't know you were going to get that deep.
I just, that's, there's this whole, we took a run at personal, I've shared this, right? And I've shared this with people who know me. I've spent my entire life in business. I have zero interest in business to this day.
I know, we talk about it all the time.
Zero interest. But it's just where I found that I could have an impact on human beings because that's where they spend most of their lives, right? And so we took a run at personal transformation as a starting point, as a starting and ending point. And I found we couldn't get it done reliably. I found what had to happen is that you had to have something at stake bigger than your own self-interest and be at work on that. And then in that container, something like what you're speaking to can happen reliably, as opposed to self-help and then in 9 months I need another dose.
Yeah.
Right, so I very much get what you're saying, and I appreciate that you've taken the journey. I just a week ago, what I said about you. So I've had the pleasure of seeing you in that period where
Yeah.
you're saying you had that transition, and here's how I articulated it to your former business partner, or current business partner. I'm sorry. I said, my sense is that Dave was a guy who was trying to get into the party, and who he is now is. He's the host of a party, but he's totally comfortable in the role. Like, it's not like this is mine, but this is yours. Like, there's that level of comfort
Yeah.
of just hosting other people's commitments.
Yeah.
That's a transition I've seen, that you have a capacity. You've always probably had that capacity, but at this point, there's such a comfort in that capacity to hold space for others.
I reckon. Yeah. Exactly. It was. I think that's exactly it. It's sort of being more welcoming to everyone. It's really just sort of recognizing people. I don't know, it's a bunch of stuff. Honestly, it's like a combination of, I think in angles. I think about, I've always thought in angles, right? So if I think about an idea right now, in the next 20 minutes, I want to outline all the value of that idea, right? Every angle. So I'm like, because I want to try and reduce the risk. If I chase this, what are the good things? Like you heard when I talked about the helicopter, right? Solves a problem, adds to my brand, could be profitable, blah, 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 blah. These are the angles of value that I go through in my mind. Now I try to apply that to the people around me. Why are they the way that they are? Why are they looking at me this way? Why are they mad at me? Why are they judging me? What are they afraid of? Right? I try to go through their angles as to what's creating that. And then also, in wanting to do that, I went through it on my own. And then I think from there, it just became like this incredible comfortability where I almost feel, I don't almost feel awkward. Like I always feel awkward when people say like I'm a visionary or I'm the founder or any of that stuff, because honestly, like I go home and I'm like, I tell my wife all the time, like if it wasn't for Johanna, like I wouldn't be here today. Like she is a absolute beast. But what I realized is she's a different type of beast, right? When I call people in business beasts, right? Like if you're like a crazy salesperson or a creative or this, I'm like, you're a beast, you're this, that. She is completely different than me. And we have such a good complement. It's that VI integrator, right? That vision and integrator sort of combo. And it's like so there. And it was so perfect that she was there for me and that we were able to get over the hurdles that we had in our existence. And now I feel like together we're unstoppable.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, breakthrough is a relational activity. There's notes of this whole mythology of the great lone leader that walks into the wilderness and conquers the whatever. It's not real. There's 100 Johannas behind every visionary, behind every Steve Jobs.
Well, it could be real, but eventually you're going to hit a wall.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing I realized. I never thought that I'd hit a wall. But then I had got to a place in my career, in my life, in my sort of maturity, in my cycle, to realize that my wall might be impressive. Like my wall, like they say, like I might be able to come up with an idea and build it into a multi-million dollar business, but I might be able to triple it if I'm open enough to partner with an integrator, with someone that is going to allow me to, because my pure will and desire can get it to where most people would say, oh my God, he's successful. But there's another gear.
Yeah.
There's another few gears if I'm willing to bring on somebody that can take me there. So that was sort of,
Yeah.
I don't know if someone died. You said someone died in me, maybe?
Well,
Maybe. Maybe.
It's a provocative phrasing, right?
I get it.
It's a provocative phrasing. It's not literal, and at the back end of it, it's exactly what you articulated. It's not an actual dying. It's a
rebirth.
integrate. Yeah, and
It's a rebirth,
integrating.
yeah.
And what it does is it transforms the past.
Yeah.
Instead of getting locked into and getting stuck into who I am, it transforms who I was.
Mm-hmm.
That story of hardship now gets transformed into something totally different.
Yeah.
Right? But at the beginning of it, it feels like, holy crap, this thing's got to die. And so I make it that visceral for clients.
Yeah,
you know?
that makes sense.
I've got a bunch more questions on along this path, but we're at the 45-minute mark, and these guys,
I finished my drink.
Yeah, finish your drink. There you go. Are insanely insightful, intelligent folks, and I'd love to hear what they have to ask. So we're going to open it up. Anything you want to observe, anything you want to ask, anything you want to play with. And so I'd encourage you to treat this not just about David, but anything that you reflect in your own experience, right? So we're going to open it up to a circle, that sort of thing. I'm sorry. And do me a favor, speak up, so because there's this room kind of, the noise bounces around a bit.
How you doing? My name is Yvonne. You mentioned earlier in the beginning of the conversation that you know what Connecticut needs. Could you speak a little bit on what that means to you and the potential of Connecticut through your eyes?
Oh man, you sure you want to open that can? All right. So being from New York, I'm going to take this from two different perspectives. I've been called into lots of rooms for marketing Connecticut, marketing New Haven, marketing Connecticut, all this stuff. I was on the branding and marketing board for a couple state senators to discuss the work that it has been happening under this current governor. And what I say to everybody is that in every government's like creative brief, marketing brief, business brief, when they start over on the marketing, they look to one campaign, which is I love New York. It was like this marketing campaign that someone just put a heart in the NY and it worked, and it was amazing, right? It just brought this amazing pride together. But if you look past that and you actually know how New York works, I was from like a little tiny town inside of in Jamaica, Queens, so you got 5 boroughs inside of the city, because in New York it's like really just the 5 boroughs and then everybody else. So inside those 5 boroughs, Queens, Jamaica, Queens, which was a part of Queens, and then within that there was a neighborhood, and those neighborhoods were like little gangs. They fought inside the neighborhood, but when push came to shove, you were from Queens, if it was Brooklyn that was challenging you. And then outside of that, you were from the city, right? And then at the end of the day, you were from New York. So you had that pride, that love. I love New York, right? You wore a Mets hat or a Yankee hat or a Giants hat or a Jets hat, and it indicated who you were. You didn't wear a little town hat. In Boston, they have this Boston pride, right? Or the Mass accent that they wear with such vigor. In Connecticut, I've never seen anybody that just loves to say Connecticut. And it just never made sense to me. You'd see, even like the whole Fairfield County being in a different Craigslist, right? Like, isn't that fucked up? So we're really this disconnected state with these little sort of pockets of towns and everything. And as a result of that, no one has a singular point of pride. The only singular point of pride that came up where somebody was bold enough to come up with a single brand was still revolutionary, but it was a miss. But what he was trying to do is trying to get everybody behind the Connecticut to say something. And I realized that. In the beginning, I just took a giant shit on the idea, and I was like, still revolutionary sucks, which it did. But he was trying to get everybody to rally behind something. Connecticut is amazing in a lot of ways. Our problems that get pointed out, taxes, I don't believe are as big of an issue as everybody says they are. GE didn't leave because of taxes, they left because of talent. If you think that they left because of anything else, look to California, where you've got the hottest companies in the world, Facebook, NASA, Tesla, Google. They're in California. California's #1 for taxes, #1 for cost of living, #1 for cost of doing business. So I think that there's a lot of misinformation and people not educated to what it is that our problems are. And I think that when you look to New York still has the problems. They have the cost. They have the taxes. They're just as highly taxed as we are. Boston's worse, right? It used to be called Massachusetts, right? It was terrible. But yet people have pride for their place, so therefore they never let anyone take a shit on their place, right? But here, we do it to ourselves. So therefore, the concept of marketing yourself, the concept of being a brand advocate. Where are our brand advocates? We don't have our own advocates for our own state, right? Like in Marketing 101, it's like get your best customers and get them to do the talking for you. Well, if everybody hates themselves, then no one's talking for us. And then we wonder why things are going bad. So we just have bad energy. If you remember in the beginning, I said I really, truly believe in energy. So, and then some people take that out of context. So they're just like, you can have all the good energy in the world, but that's not going to change the taxes or the this or the that. But that hasn't changed in New York either. But New York's having a resurrection. 30 years ago, they said New York was finished. New York City was done. 42nd Street used to have nothing but prostitutes and drug addicts, and it was terrible. Now you go there, and a billboard for one flip of a billboard costs $10,000. Okay?
It's still terrible, but it's profitable.
It's profitable and terrible in the same way. So I think Connecticut has an energy issue, and I think that Connecticut needs to own what they are, right? Like they always say, we're the middle between, New Haven says we're the middle between New York and Boston. I think we're the middle between, we are a small state that needs to get together and embrace everyone and celebrate everyone's success, right? That's why this building has values. One of our values is get shit done. Right? Stop focusing on bullshit. Get shit done, all of us. 2 is celebrate everyone's success. If that means your baseball team, a little league team, or this, that, your city gets voted for the best lobster roll. Everybody should post it. It's Connecticut. Celebrate everything, right? Instead, we get caught up in this competitiveness, right? Like Hartford and New Haven are competitive. It's 35 minutes away.
We're medieval Europe. There's literally a highway in between, like there used to be a highway in between, and we got these walls up around New Haven, and we got these walls up around Hartford, and if you want to cross from one to the other, you need an introduction from the Duke in order to get anything meaningful done.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
So I kind of look towards that as the problem, and then I look towards how do you fix it, right? To me, district is like a media, like all of you guys, like you're listening to me. Maybe I'm going to convince you a little. Maybe I'm going to have a little bit of influence, and maybe you're going to hear a little bit of a nugget of goodness that you're going to take with you, and you're going to then bring that to your circle, whether that's 300 people on Facebook or Instagram or a town or whatever. But you'll start to tell people to stop listening to the bullshit, to stop listening to the negative, to the negativity. Like I really feel like you got to do that. Otherwise, it's like you ever pay attention to like the food stuff that goes on? Coconut oil is the shit. Coconut oil will give you cancer. Microwaves are terrible for you. They change the molecules of water. Dairy's good, gluten's good, dairy's bad, gluten's bad. It's like, if you just pay attention to that, you will go crazy. You will literally be negative and think that everything in the world is bad. But if you just say to yourself, okay, I'm going to have some positivity around what's happening. I'm going to try and listen past the negative and listen to the fact that there's this 2 companies in the past 60 days became unicorns in Connecticut. Does anybody know the names? You know what does everybody know what a unicorn is? Show of hands. How many people know what a unicorn is? So I'm talking about in business. So a unicorn in business is a company that gets valued at $1 billion. So we've had like 6 unicorns in Connecticut in the last few years, but nobody talks about it. But that's like the thing in California and San Francisco, right?
Yeah, it's currency.
Google was a unicorn, Facebook was a unicorn, Pinterest was a unicorn, Tesla's a unicorn. We had 6, we just had 2 in the past 60 days here, but nobody knows about it because no one's really celebrating that. But if we did, then everybody in Connecticut would say, Connecticut's coming back a little bit, right? So I say celebrate those successes, whether they're small or big. I got more thoughts.
It's an issue of currency. You know, the currency in Northern California
Yeah.
is innovation,
Experimentation.
IPOs, experimentation, valuation, right? Those are currencies in Northern California. And what you're speaking to, it's certainly, I mean, listen, I'm a Connecticut guy my whole life. I grew up in New Haven, Morris Cove, across the bridge, right? I just found out yesterday the home I grew up in is for sale. It's like 89 grand. Like, I'm so tempted to buy it just to have it. You know? This tiny little house, like 800 square foot house in Morris Cove. Anyway, the currency in Connecticut, is what you say. The currency in Connecticut, how we trade with each other, is complaint. It's highway traffic is one of the prime currencies in Connecticut, right? You ever been out to San Francisco, man? Traffic sucks.
We never got anywhere
that's not
in New York
currency.
City. In New York, you don't go, if you go from Brooklyn to Manhattan, it takes 45 minutes. Whether it's train, car, what have you.
That's not
Here,
currency.
you drive 15 minutes and someone thinks you've schlepped somewhere.
Yeah. And God forbid there's
I
construction
swear to
along
God,
the way.
I live in Milford, right? 15 minutes I'm in Westport, 15 minutes I'm in New Haven. I go to Westport and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you made the schlep all the way from Milford.
Yeah. I want to move on to others, but have you guys spent time together?
Who?
Kevin, okay, you guys got to spend time. Storyteller, about telling stories in New Haven, old New Haven guy coming back home.
Good.
Really, yeah. And you know.
I could talk about it for a long time. I got a ton of information. I got a ton of examples.
What you're speaking to, I apologize for paraphrasing you, but this is what I've heard from you. What you're speaking to is what his mission is to create stories that honor what's here versus the stories that have taken over. Yeah, is that fair? Yeah.
You know what
yeah.
my daughter said to me the other day? So I'm so New York, my daughter's name is Brooklyn. It's true.
There you go.
So my daughter said to me the other day, she said, this was like 2 months ago. She asked me a question. She said, Dad, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live? So in my mind, I was thinking like, if you won the Powerball, what would you do? So I'm thinking about, I was like, well, I think my house would have an infinity pool. I was like, but on the water, and it would be like semi-modern and all this stuff. And then I was like, I don't know. I would probably have like a couple houses. And she goes, I would live right here in Milford. She said, because in the spring, there's new life. In the summer, you can jump out on a boat, or you can go to camps or this and that. She said in the fall, the leaves turn color and they're beautiful. And she said, and in the winter when it snows, she's like, snow could be a pain in the butt. She's like, but it's beautiful when it first falls. And it was like 6 of us, and everybody just sort of said, wow. Like, we take that for granted, the 4 seasons for granted. Like, we get pissed off. Like, everybody's always pissed off. Like, oh my God, the allergies, the snow sucks. It's too cold, it's too hot. Oh my, I can't stop sneezing. Pumpkin spice sucks. But so
right.
everybody, no one. It's true, I hate that smell. But you know what I'm saying? Like, there's like, no, we're not happy. And where I'm from, if you're not happy, then change it, right? If you don't like that stuff, then leave. It's easy. If you're struggling here, it's pretty easy to go pick up and struggle somewhere else. There's a struggle everywhere. So, but it was an eye-opener, and I said, you know what? That is a beautiful thing. Like, I can go snowboarding in another month or 2. They're already spraying snow in Killington. It's Vermont, but it's 2 hours away. That's nothing. Like, we got caught up in these lines and this bullshit. This is a great place. Sorry. It'll get worse, I promise. If you guys keep asking me questions like this.
This is what I was pointing to earlier about the unstoppability, right? Like, this is it. This is the demonstration of it. This is the mindset. This is I don't care what you say. This is what I see. This is, and not made up fantasy. Real with evidence. This is what I see and where I choose to put my focus. This is how you get shit done that's impossible, right? Not making up stories that are nonsense, not making up facts, not any of that stuff, but choosing to focus where there's possibility versus focus where there's only stuck. Focus where there's only constraint. Focus where there's only gravity from the past, all right? This last 7 minutes is a perfect embodiment of what every person who's gotten anything done that at the start of it looked like nonsense, and at the end of it looked like, holy shit, how do you get that done? This is the mindset. If I refuse to focus anywhere other than possibility.
If I could add to that in any way, is that I'll tell you just from my perspective and the things that have happened to me. So it's October. If I look back at October of 2017, I was like begging people for money. I needed to raise this. I needed to get this done, and all these things I had to get done. And I heard, I'm crazy. I'm immature. I heard people whispering, he'll never do that. I heard people talking shit to other people that got back to me. October, November, December, January, February, we opened. By March, I was a genius. I was a visionary. I was brilliant. Just complete change. It was like, I'd walk in a room and be like, here's the visionary. And I was just like, how is that possible? And then it hit me, like the people that I've studied, the people that I respected, like Jack Ma was a high school teacher that started Alibaba. They said he was crazy all the time. They basically tried to convince him that he was nuts. Elon Musk, who might be borderline, but that's okay. But what I've learned is in studying that is that it's people's fears because they don't have what it takes to go into the darkness and to go into that place where everyone's telling you, don't do this. This is the way it has to be. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. There's not been a single, in the however many millions of years that life has existed on this planet, there's not been a single step of process that wasn't the byproduct of an error, mutation. Every species is a mistake. Fundamentally, it's a mutation. All right, and so it's this. It's people who are not willing to accept that this is how it is, and are committed to it. It's not just a belligerent stance, but actually willing to do the work to get shit done, as you said. Right? I'm sorry. So that was like 30 minutes on one question.
So, and I could go on for another 2 hours.
Please.
She got another gear in there. You heard that?
Yeah.
6 unicorns in the last few years. Why aren't they being acknowledged here?
So I got a theory on that. Number one, how often? The only time you hear people that are happy and loud is when they're drunk, right? How many people do you know that are like, I'm having a great day, and they're just super loud and like want to share that with everybody? They don't really care because they're just going about being happy. Versus when people are angry or sad or depressed or pissed off for whatever reason, like that's why they created Yelp and Glassdoor, right? It's like for people to bitch because they like to be loud. They like to bring people into their sorrow, but happy people are just like, I'm just going to go about it. We have to change that. And I actually believe that there's a fundamental shift happening in trends right now where people are going through this sort of, I don't want to be in that environment anymore. I don't want to be around that energy anymore. I want to be about positive people that look at what you do as positive things. Right? You're starting to hear celebrities talk about it more and tweet about it, and then all of a sudden, so mindfulness and wellness is on the rise, and the industries are booming right now. I think it was like $76 billion already in mindfulness and wellness and all this stuff. That's part of that is just being positive. So I think that if we all could do one thing after we leave here is to like be more positive about our place. Be more positive about the things that happen. And when you hear about Datto and they're worth, they get valued at $1 billion in Norwalk, some people are like, yeah, well, fuck him. It's not my money. It's like, to me, I don't see that. I'm like, how can I be around that energy? Like, what did he do in life to come up with an idea and turn that corner? You know how hard it is? Like, the concept of 1%, do you know how hard it is to get into that? Like, it's not really 1%. Like, it's really difficult. So I want to be around that, because if I can get there, I can change the world. I can do things to make things even better. Like, that's where my brain goes. So I think that, and the other thing is, happiness doesn't get clicks, right? Like, if you post something and it's like, another company is worth $1 billion in Connecticut, they'd rather say, Lamont wants to put tolls on the highway. What do you think about that? Because they want to get more of a reaction, so you share it, because they know that the negativity will get more views and clicks. We're media driven. And I think that we as people have to realize that the New Haven Register and WTNH and all these channels, they're not shit unless we share their stuff. And we have just as much power. Every single one of you is a WTNH, right? Every single one of you is a New Haven Independent, right? We are individual little media companies. I've talked about this. District is a media hub, right? We can put out sound. This video is going to hit, and people are going to hear, whether I want them to hear all the F-bombs that I might drop in this or not, they're going to hear it. They're going to hear all about who I am and how I think and all of that stuff. Like, that's media. So I think that we just have to recognize our power and what we want to put out there. Does that make sense?
Tight. So I want to get to other questions, and I know you have a hard stop. I'd love for you to just talk about something you touched on, and that I very much appreciate your. So David and I have talked about this kind of notion of you mentioned 1%. We've talked about this notion of wealth accumulation, and I have a particular philosophy around money that we'll get into another session. Affluent poverty, right? It's another, right? But I very much appreciate, and not to blow smoke, but it's a rare thing for folks to express the kind of perspective you did around why you want to get a big pile of money under you. So when you say 1%, that can get heard a certain way, right? But I'd love for you to just talk, in a tight way about what wealth means for you. Like, accumulating a big pile of money, what's that about?
You can change. I believe that I can. Government's not supposed to create for us. They're just supposed to hold the rails, right? They're supposed to give us the rails. They're supposed to govern, give us like the track that we can stay within, support us. But we've got to this place where it's like they're literally running us, right? And I'm talking about local government, state government, federal government, right? All across the board. But the truth of the matter is, when you go down in the depths of who they are, they're meant to not move. The line goes this way, the line goes this way. The line goes this way, the line goes this way. The only way you can physically change that is private. Is through the private industry, right? Through businesses. And to do that, you need capital. So District is a firm example of a private-public partnership, right? The state gave us the property. They believed in our idea. They didn't give it to us. We bought it. We put a lot of heart, sweat, and tears in it. And then they gave us the dollars to remediate it, because it was, for those of you who don't know, this was a bus depot built in 1950, and there was another building in the back that they used to fix the buses on, and there was tanks underneath the ground. There was oils that came out of the tanks because they were negligent and didn't follow and do the maintenance on the tanks. It was a long time ago. So we knocked down that building and opened up the ground and took the oil out. So we cleaned the property and made it nice and neat, and then did everything that we did from that point forward. So that was the state saying, hey, we're responsible, so we're going to take care of that. We also believe in what you're going to do, so we're going to put that money up. And then we also believe in that you're going to execute. And then they were right in this situation, and we executed, and our money was able to create this sort of impact now that's creating a little bit of a swell. Like, like, I don't mean to pat myself on the back or my team on the back in any way, but we find people walking around this property with cameras and notepads from other cities, from other states, taking pictures and saying, and I'm like, why are you walking around my building? And they're like, and this was before we were even done, when just there was a little bit of news. They were coming here and taking notes on the HVAC and how it was done and the lighting and taking pictures and the brick and this and that. And it was like we had already set a standard. Connecticut had set a standard in design, right? So I think that, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that at this point, but
Can I indulge in paraphrasing you?
go ahead.
Because it's interesting, David. You both wear your heart on your sleeve and sometimes don't say it directly, right?
Yeah.
What I've heard from you and what I hear in the background of what you're saying is that wealth for you is a position from which to contribute. It's a position from which you contribute in ways that the systems that we have created for taking care of fundamentally can't take care of.
You can't have enough money to give away. You know how many emails I get to give away money? Today I got a message from this group and this group, they want space, and this group wants money, and this group wants me to donate to the gala, and it's so everybody has their hand out. And I'm one of those people because I'm raising money for the Holberton School, trying to get people in, and for the DIVC school to support all the different education initiatives. Like everybody, so you realize very quickly that they want money, right? They want, or time, or some value. If you can earn, you can support, you can create the support systems that your family needs, and at the same time create the support systems that your community needs, right? Or be a little bit more a part of that, right? And then, I don't know, for me, and then his legacy, right? Because it's like I want my daughter to see like that she can do good in the world, and that, you know, like I remember for me, I grew up in the city in a building. I never grew anything in my life. So the ability to, in Connecticut, I was like, I got a yard, it's small, but I can make tomatoes. And I was so excited to show my daughter that she could grow stuff. And now I'm showing her that she can grow stuff on a different level with District. So I don't know, for me, the capital gives you the ability to have the impact that we get reliant on the governments to give us. And I feel like you could just make a lot more happiness when you have the right angles, right?
That's great. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned that this past year you had like your personal breakthrough. I was wondering how many times before that did you have like mini breakthroughs? How much of that attributed to your success, and at the moment where you felt like everything was lost, what made you stay in the game?
Did you guys hear that back there? Great.
So I think you have breakthroughs all the time, right? A breakthrough can come in different shapes and sizes. Losses can be losses can hurt a whole lot. Like for me, I've had huge ups and downs, right? I've had like big wins and big losses. I've had like I remember times when I was like digging in the couches for change, like that level of nothingness, right? I remember when I had to make tough decisions to come out of to do things that were out of my character and out of my comfort zone. And although I haven't had a lot of them in the last like 3-4 years, there are these times where you're just sort of overwhelmed. And I always tell everybody, like, you get one day. Like, just take one day. If you absolutely feel like you're gonna crack and like it's gonna be more than you can handle, like it's just overwhelming, and it happens. Like it's just a lot, right? It's like a lot of people depending on you, and a lot of people hanging on every word that you say or what you're going to do or like waiting for you to fail, like whatever the pressure is to you, I always say just take one day. Do what you got to do. Cry, scream, yell, hit the gym, drive fast on the highway, try not to get hurt. Maybe I do that. Go snowboarding. Take the day off. Just be like, I'm just gonna cut. Whatever you got to do, you just got to do that, and then you got to let it go, and you got to get back on. You got to get back on whatever you were doing and power through. People get. I talk about this all the time. People get paralyzed by pressure, by choices, by whatever it is. You just got to power through that stuff because it's not helping you. It's not teaching you. It's not giving you any lessons or anything like that. And I have that. I might have that once a quarter. I might tell my wife is amazing, right? And I try to like lift my family up on my back and just do what I got to do. But sometimes I'm just like, can you just rub my head? Right? I just literally like, can you just rub my head? Like I'm 8 years old and my mom was still alive. I'm just like, can you just comfort me in this way? Or I'll call my father for him to tell me his bullshit. Seriously, like I'll literally call him just because his voice will soothe me just a little bit so that I can get through the next, just get through it, or whatever it is. Where you just got, just take it, give yourself that hour, that day, that night, that whatever, and then it's got to be, like I tell my daughter, like, and I'm, again, back to my hip hop references. I'm just like, there was a famous rapper, he said, you got to get that dirt off your shoulder. And I had my daughter doing this when she was 2 years old. She's like, Daddy, I was at daycare and this girl told me I was stupid. And I'm like, you just got to get it off. Like, that's how I believe, that's what I believe, and that's how I overcome those situations. That's the best advice I can give you. Everybody's going to have tough times. How you come out of them and how quickly you come out of them is going to define who you are and what you could do.
On 95, no traffic, open road.
Don't even get me.
Who's on the radio, or who's on your MP3 player?
MP3 player, what's that?
Whatever that is.
Spotify?
Kids. What's playing?
It depends. Right now?
Who's the go-to?
Right now, right now I've been listening to Ray Charles.
Yeah.
I got a woman.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So I've been listening to Ray Charles. I just recently reactivated Drake's new album.
Okay. Drake.
Mob Ties, good old school track, new track on his album. I've been listening to Wayne, although I'm a little bit disappointed in the album. But then I have like my tracks that are like my go-to old school tracks. Like I love Jay-Z, Biggie. I go all over the place though. I literally go all over. Logic. I think Logic is the best. Best. Logic's new album is the best album of the year, as far as hip hop albums. And I wasn't like a big Logic fan before that. I just like honestly, I truly think he did a great job. But I'm like hip hop through and through. Like I grew up in Queens in the 80s. Like I went to school with the Lost Boys and like I knew Mobb Deep and like growing up as a kid and literally like we used to see all like I went to high school in South Jamaica, Queens, where 50 Cent is from. Like we had a ton of pride for the stuff that was happening there. But I will bounce around. Like my daughter thinks I'm crazy because I've been rocking Ray Charles for like a week or Joe Crocker, Like I'll just go all over the place. I love music. I do really, really, truly love music.
Yeah. Just to earn some cred with you. There's a picture. It's analog. There's a picture of me, ODB, and Dennis Rodman at a party in New York in the 90s. So I'm going to bring that to you just to gain some credibility.
I saw ODB, so for Old Dirty Bastard, he was a part of Wu-Tang Clan, for those of you that don't know. I saw him in a movie theater when I was a teenager, and he had 9 children with him. Yeah. And they were his kids.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, I'm so impressed right now that you're at the movie theater with all 9 of your kids and you're as famous as you are. Yeah. Yeah.
That's great.
But that's my music choices. That's how I met my business partner.
I forgot you were here.
That's how I met my business partner, by the way. I had a recording studio because I always loved music. I had a recording studio. I always wanted to find an artist to sort of market and like get behind. It's really difficult to get into the industry. My engineer, his name was Boris. He said, I know this kid. They call him this kid Pete, and he does computer shit like you. And that's how we met.
Yeah.
And then that turned into Digital Surgeons, which turned into Startup Investments, which turned into District, which turned into the Innovation Center, and then everything from that point actually stems from music.
That's great. So Pete Senna, CEO of the place you're sitting in right now. Pete will
Yep.
be our guest in January or February, I forget. But we're going to talk about loosening up your thinking. Pete is one of the more non-linear thinkers you'll find in the world. So that's going to be a topic with him. We have a bunch of people in the audience, as it were, in the group here, who have a real commitment and are studying systemic change, organizational change. I'm curious what themes you hear in this conversation around creating change, what it takes to create change. Anything you're seeing in this conversation?
Something yesterday that
Yeah.
I wanted to share, and this seems consistent with everything you just said. I was in Sports Illustrated. They did a feature on Herm Edwards, a TV personality who's now coaching Arizona State. He said, when you're interested in something, you only do it when it's convenient. When you're committed to something, you accept no excuses, only results. And that seemed to be something that was true for you.
Yeah,
That's great.
I like that.
great.
I like that a whole lot.
Yeah. Too bad he couldn't put more of that into the Jets, but yeah.
Can I ask you a question? The work you're doing,
Yeah.
I'm from Hartford, and I work in Britain. And how will this, apart from the attitude change, how will this work, grow in such a way where we can invigorate other areas apart from New Haven, which this is awesome, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And, it could just stay here and it doesn't benefit anything outside of New Haven, which is already doing pretty well. So I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
That's great.
So I think like there's different levels of benefit. So the first level is that people from Hartford like yourself come down and they go, wow, right? And it inspires them, and then they go back to Hartford and they want that to happen. There's also like sparks, a lot of great sparks happening in Hartford at the same time, like Upward Hartford, Shana and Upward Hartford, the insurance tech incubators, Stanley Black & Decker and Techstars doing the additive manufacturing accelerator. That just brought 3 3D printing companies into Connecticut that have now stayed after 13 weeks because Stanley's is leaning in on innovation, digital transformation, and disruption now, right? It shows people 100. How old is Stanley? 140 something years old, right? That they're embracing sort of the future. So I think it enhances what's happening already. I think this location is unique in the sense that I believe it's a hub. So the interesting thing, you have to deal with behaviors, right? We talked about Connecticut and the thoughts and the way people think. I think you got to deal with a lot of behaviors. And then one of the behaviors is that travel is like, everybody's like, I don't want to travel. Like me, I'll drive to Hartford, I'll drive to Stanford, I'll drive to New York. I won't drive much further than that. I think my cutoff's like 2 to 3 hours. After that, I'm flying. But people in Hartford, investors in Hartford, businesses in Hartford, professionals in Hartford will not travel down to Stanford, right? And vice versa. But they will come to New Haven. So this room literally is designed for this, right? For you to come from Hartford and be in this room with the screen behind me, and while there's a whole nother event happening in the hallway, right? This wall behind you, this glass wall, Scott, can you grab the doors and just open it up? I was like, I need a room that can have like a huge a huge meeting in it, but at the same time, I could even further increase the size of the room to make it more modular. So this wall completely opens up, and that table that can host a 24-person or 30-person conference right there is on wheels, and it can break apart, and you can change the room. So I wanted to create a sort of hub for everyone, and you'll never hear me come here and be like, come move to New Haven. You know, I'll never say that. I want people to just come here, enjoy the spot, and go back. Like, that's fine. Like, there's no reason for me to try and fight for that and be competitive like that. So I want to be the hub. At least New Haven be the initial hub. The future of district is not just New Haven. I'm already looking at other locations. I've been invited to other cities. I've been invited to other states. And now I'm thinking about it in a completely different way. So now my brain is on another level where I'm thinking about how I can use district to unite New England, right? New England is this tiny little corner of the country chopped up into 100 pieces, right? Thousands of pieces, really, right? Connecticut's 169 pieces. But then we've got all these little states, and New Hampshire's this little state, and Providence, and Maine, and you know, with the exception of Boston and New York, everybody else is sort of isolated, and nobody invests in those places. So could district create a bond between everybody? So now, if I put one in Hartford, then New Haven and Springfield can meet at Hartford, right? If I put one in, or Springfield. If I put one in Providence, will it attract Manchester and Springfield and Portland? You know, could we create a chat system so everybody can unite and start to celebrate what's happening in New England? That's sort of how I'm thinking now, in terms of the possibilities of how we can extend this. You know, go down to Stamford and do something different. And every time bringing something that's a little bit different. Like here we have co-working, and we might do biotech, and we have Holberton that's doing the computer science and leadership and education and data science education and training. Maybe down there it's blockchain in Stanford. Maybe in Hartford we get into a completely different training system, advanced manufacturing training systems inside of those districts, and sort of figure out how to fill the gaps in those particular communities and bring people together in the same way that we did here. At least that's how I'm thinking. And now that I said it out loud, I got to get it done. At least for the next 6 days.
Sarah, were you going to ask something?
What was the question you asked?
I just asked if, I don't remember. I think I just asked if anybody had, do you remember my question? Oh, yeah, yeah. What do you see in this conversation about change, systemic change, what it takes to create change, et cetera? Persistence in the face of? No. Yeah. And it's interesting. So that's, you know, that was technically the title of your session, David, is so there is standing in the face of disagreement, right? Disagreement is, I think you're wrong. That's different than what David and every other person who's done the impossible faces. They don't face disagreement. It can look like disagreement. What they face is no agreement. No agreement is, huh? Right? It looks like disagreement. It sounds like disagreement. But disagreement is, I have facts that counter your facts, and so you're wrong. No agreement is, you're crazy. And so if you engage no agreement with the way you engage disagreement, it's a futile effort. The way to engage no agreement is the story David told you, which is I'm going to go around and over and under and just be unstoppable.
People call me crazy all the time. I call myself crazy. I've done crazy things. I've done things now that I look back on and I say, that was crazy.
Yeah.
I've never raised money before. Digital Surgeons was built off of $5,000, $2,500 from me and $2,500 from
So
Pete.
great.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right. So I've never raised investor money. I've been around it. I've discussed it. I've been a part of it, but I've never done it. I raised almost $5 million in 5.5 weeks this year for the DIVC Holberton School U of Next project that we're doing. Almost $5 million. Think about that. In 5.5 weeks. And I thought I was going crazy. You remember that?
I remember the conversation right there of, hey, you've heard of Ecole 42? Yeah, I think I have. Right? It's a coding school. I'm talking to them. I don't know. But they said talk to Holberton. You ever hear of Holberton? No, I haven't. I'm going to go meet them. It's David. I'm going to go meet them. And
I flew to San Francisco.
literally within 6 to 7 weeks, a transformational thing exists here in New Haven. It's fascinating.
5.5 weeks. And I talked to people that were like, you know, big shot. Like I know lots of people in the government now, and I know people at like the big venture companies and all this stuff. And I would talk to them, and I'm like, oh, I need your help. And the guy's like, oh yeah, I'll see what I could do. And then they would drop the ball, right? Like I need you to help me connect to this company so that I could talk to them about getting some dollars. And they would say yes, and then for 2 weeks, no answers. And then on the third week, I'd be like, yo, you said you're gonna help me out. And he said, listen, oh man, I dropped the ball, but I don't know, for some reason, I just have no doubt that you're gonna be able to raise that money because you're just a machine. Someone called me the other day, it's like, you're just a machine. And it's because the no agreement, because people say it can't be done, it's just them saying like,
I don't understand.
one of the guys told me, he goes, he said, honestly, I don't believe you. He said, I think you're crazy and I don't think you're gonna be successful, but I also thought that Facebook was a bad bet when it was worth $100 million. And then I was like, you know what, you're an asshole. I was like, that was a huge miss because I would have made the bet, and I did make the bet. I bought Facebook at $18 a share. I had
That was
literally,
rock bottom.
I had the
That
rock
was
bottom,
rock
I had the
bottom.
rock
18 was
bottom click.
bottom, yeah.
And everybody around me has the rock bottom click or close to it. My brother's got 19, Pete's got 20, because I told him, I said, I literally saw when Facebook started to work on mobile devices. And I went, oh, it works.
Yeah.
I said, buy it now, buy it now. And
Very smart.
anybody that jumped into it, literally, I got employees in my office that are like, I'm up 600%.
Yeah. I'm up 1,200%.
Yeah, crazy money.
It's good. It's good.
I'm up a lot of money.
Yeah. That's all
But I
good
mean,
for you. Yeah.
but it's all relatively too. By the way, relative. Everybody gets like all excited about it. Like if you buy a stock for $18 and it doubles, you made 100% on your money. Don't be focused on the fact that you made $18. Focus on the fact that you made the right bet. Like everybody sort of gets caught up in the money that they're going to make. Like you can't make that money in the regular market. Like the banks are giving you 2% interest, 1% interest. So if you can make 100% on a bet because you think you know something, even if that's $18 becoming $36, be proud of that. Stop focusing on the dollar amount. Like you'll get to a place, like my bets sometimes, you know, like I'll bet $100 and I'll make $100, or I'll bet $1,000 and I'll make $500. Whatever it is, like don't get caught up in that stuff. Just get caught up in the practice of investing and being right about the things that you feel, right? Like I said, I literally felt when Facebook was working on mobile devices, and I was like, what do you mean Al likes this? And it's sponsored. Al likes Holy Basil? Well, if Al likes Holy Basil, I like Holy Basil. Let me buy this. And I was like, this is going to work. And that's how it all started with their ads.
So an OD concept we talked about was type 2 change, changing the reality. And me as a New Haven resident, parents of New Haven residents, I grew up in Fairhaven, completely different life I lived from basically from like elementary until I hit college. Completely different shift after high school. And what you talked about, everything at districts, for me, is a type 2 change because you're trying to change the reality of Connecticut. Trying to change how we are basically isolating, fighting each other, and not coming together, and kind of making us aware of the potentiality of our own greatness.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I would never even thought of as a Connecticut resident. Never even thought of.
So why, right? Think about that. It's like, why would you not think of that? Like if Canada can have the hottest rapper, why can't? I'm serious. I'm serious. I mean,
That's such a great reference point. I love that.
it's the
I'm
truth.
stealing that. That's great. Yeah.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
It's like well, Connecticut could have it too.
I think we're taught to be that way somehow. Like it's ingrained in the way we're taught as kids.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up with a negative where I'm from and all this stuff.
See, I hate to be taught anything. Like when a movie comes out and you ask somebody, oh, I want to see this movie, and they're like, oh, I saw it, it sucked. I'm like, I didn't ask you. Like, I don't want to know that. Like, you might, like, you know how many movies I've seen that people said sucked that I liked? Like, I don't want to be taught anything. I want to learn it. Like, I want to manifest what I want it to be, like always. Like, I went to see Night School the other day, and a bunch of people walked out, and I heard them, they were like, that was stupid, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I was entertained the entire time. Tiffany Haddish is hilarious, and so is Kevin Hart. Like, I thought it was funny. Like, and it took up a couple hours of my life on a Friday night when I needed a little break from reality, right? So I was totally happy with the experience and the investment that I made and the $8 or whatever it was. And I don't know, I hate when someone tells me what they think I should feel like or be like or think, right? Like, I want to experience it for myself. Same thing, I teach my daughter that. Like, when my daughter was young, kids, you know, when kids are young, they only eat like peanut butter jelly and they like hate textures and stuff like that. I taught my daughter, I said, try everything twice. Try it once because you never had it, and try it twice to make sure that your first opinion was right. And because of that, she has such a love for food that she literally wants to open a restaurant at 9 years old and named it, and it's going to be in Italy, and she wants to be the best in the world because her love for food changed. Her palate changed because I opened up her mind and gave her a different perspective on stuff. 3 years old, she was eating oysters at the Oyster Festival in Milford. And they took a video of her, and they said, oh, first timer, and she got pissed off because on the news it said that she was a first-time oyster eater, and she's like, I've been eating oysters for a year. What are they talking about? She was really pissed off.
Brooklyn. She's got a little. Brooklyn's got a little Brooklyn.
She definitely does.
You in the framing of your question, what was your answer? Right? I never thought. Right? I talk about this distinction a lot, David, with students and with clients. That what we've been habituated around to thinking is not the case. What's reinforced in schools and what's reinforced in the corporate world is not thinking. It's thunking. That's a real word, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
I know.
Thunking is the retrieval of previously thought thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you're retrieving previously thought thoughts, how could you possibly have a vision that's impossible? How could you think that about New Haven or about Connecticut? Right? You have to declare. You have to go outside of what somebody's already thought. You have to generate original thinking. And so this vision is original thinking. It's not right. It's just committed. All right? It's like what an artist does. You know? Pollock doesn't say, well, somebody told me splattering paint on a canvas was a good idea. All right? Jackson Pollock just starts splattering paint and learned, to your point, he wasn't taught how to do that style of painting, but he learned it. Right? He wasn't taught it, but he learned it. David wasn't taught what the possibility of New Haven was, but he learned it.
I didn't know real estate.
Yeah.
Like, back to the original story, like I during the mortgage, during the mortgage crisis, right before that, I did like this crazy real estate investment, but it was like completely. I don't know if I'd call it fraudulent or not, but it was like I got a mortgage when I probably shouldn't have got it, and I got this house, and I bought it, and I got a construction loan, and I got out with the skin on my back, right? I never did real estate. My father had like a couple apartments in New York City and Queens, and then a couple multifamilies in Long Island, and I just jumped into this, and I just said, we thought about things like this room being a community room, and like. We knew this was going to happen. Like, there's this 80-person, 100-person Pechakusha happening right now on the other side of this wall in the hallway. We knew that this would happen while this was happening, right? We've had, like, everything sort of just visually, but, and then sometimes it's not perfect. And so there's, like, some honing and stuff like that. Yeah. But, I don't know. It's been great.
And just nuance what you say, right? We knew it was going to happen. Not we had data from the past that told us this would happen if we did this.
No, we
didn't. We
didn't.
knew it was going to happen, and that we're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
That's a critical point.
Recently, when we had the whole Burton School announcement, they came up with the one of the channels said the Field of Dreams, And they literally used to say that to us. Like, you know, this is not the Field of Dreams. If you build it, we'll come. Like that's not how finance works. The banks are not gonna give you money because of that. So we figured out a way to get that financing done. $19 million. We figured it out. Like, just busted our asses, like defied everything. And then they called us the Field of Dreams, which was crazy to me. To see it on TV when it came up, and it was like, some people are saying that this is the Field of Dreams in Connecticut, and I was just like, wow. They were making fun of us because they said it wasn't the Field of Dreams, and now they're saying it is the Field of Dreams, right? That we're making stuff happen. We're giving people opportunities. So
I want to just say something that gets lost at the end, and we're near the end of our time. We're going to still take another question because I know you want to ask something, but before the question, I want to do what normally I said gets lost at the end and trimmed out of the video. So, you know, what David said about Johanna, right? Like somebody you don't even know who made this place possible and makes it possible, right? I want to just acknowledge, right? So Scott, or look at Scott. There's Scott. Donnell, the camera. Is Tiffany still here?
there she
Tiffany
is
in the back. Tiffany, right?
Nadine.
I was going to hold off to Nadine for a second. Johanna, who you haven't met yet, but if you go out there, you'll meet. It's an ongoing miracle what this place is in terms of these folks like, you know, showing up, contributing to something that doesn't have direct, like, P&L, I get paid this much and I get this percentage, contributing to something out of commitment. So I just want to really, you know, deeply acknowledge those folks. Amy, who you got here early, Amy, young lady, purple hair, came in here and set this place up for you. So many folks who you know, in events like this and in this place, who just kind of work because they're at work on the commitments that underlie the place, right? So I want to acknowledge that, and then when I used to do this way back when in New York, I covertly made the decision. Like, my whole life has been this like Trojan horse phenomenon, my whole career, right? I made the decision that I was only going to, you know, do these things with people that that I loved, and I don't say that lightly, people that I saw possibility with, right? And this go round, I was like, made a decision overtly, right? And so I want to just acknowledge, you know, something to you that I haven't said to you.
You don't have to say it. You want to just hug?
No, I don't want to hug you. It's, you know, maybe after one more. No, so I haven't said this to you, but it resonates with what you've said about this place. And so 2 years ago, you know, some of you, again, folks who know me know this story. 2 years ago, I hung up my consulting practice. I kind of parceled it off and decided I'm done and focused on educating in the formal places I educate. And then, you know, we're kind of hatching, how do we get into inner city New Haven, or Detroit was the other place I was looking at, and we just try to transfer our work into places where folks just haven't had access to it, right?
And then Scott said, hold on.
Scott said, hold on. So Scott said, hold on, you got to meet this guy. And it's you're a catalyst. I don't know if I should blame you or credit you. You're a catalyst. You're the catalyst for my saying, okay, one more round of building something. All right, one more round of actually building something systemic is a byproduct of this whole conversation about how you engage with what you're engaging with. You know, so Scott introduced us, tried to introduce us. I said, yeah, another young guy from Brooklyn who wants to do entrepreneur space. And then eventually,
Queens keeps on taking it.
yeah, Queens, I know. I keep saying Brooklyn, it's Queens. Eventually we met, and I got that he's not out for an entrepreneur space. He's out for what this whole conversation has been, right? He's out for a mission here.
I'm also, and I realized this because Pete told me this. I'm a hype man. I'm like the guy behind Jay-Z, right? I'm like Memphis Bleak. I'm like the guy that's like whatever you say, I'm just gonna give you a little bit of extra oomph behind it. Like, I truly am. I get people excited about it. Like, I mean, honestly, is anybody a little bit more excited about New Haven and Connecticut right now because of the conversation, right? So I hyped you up a little bit. Like, that's good, Now it could die out, and you know what's crazy? Something horrible can happen tomorrow, right? Like someone gets hurt or robbed or this or that, or you see a little bit of media and you forget what I told you. But if I could just hype you up a little bit, like I hyped him up, and he's like, "Let's do this. I got one more round in me," and then I get more excited, and then we get more people, and it's sort of like it becomes a big movement. So Pete always said, he goes, "You're like the best hype man."
Yeah. I want to find a better reference for it than hype man, because hype man does it a disservice. But
Why?
I hear you. Hype man can sound like it's, hype has a bad
Everybody needs a
reputation.
Tony Ayo.
Yeah. It's
See, there's hip hop fans I can hear
It's
because they
Tony
knew right away.
Yeah. So, but before one more question, Nadine Krause in the back, raise your hand. So Nadine is taking on what may be the most transformative thing in this place when all is said and done, which is right next on the other side of this wall, the Holberton School, a 2-year school, coding, first one in the state, no tuition, no teachers, and with this insane mission to redefine what extended 2-year education looks like in the world, but starting with coding. Right. And so again, there's the kinds of people that are at work here and that get opened up when you're willing to step out and stand for something that is dumb, crazy, stupid, makes no sense when you started. So you you get the honor of the last question or the last comment or the last whatever.
It's more of a comment, but
Yeah, great.
Because I'm getting distracted all over. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I know you were,
I mean, initially, like going back to your previous question, what I noticed about change is that it doesn't always require something big. The system alone will take care of it. So in this example, you are creating the space for other people to connect, and what they do with it is up to them. And it doesn't need to be that big. And whoever doesn't like Connecticut can just leave. But the ones who like this and like what's going on, it's going to move to Connecticut, and it's just become more bigger. And just you opening up more locations would give people more opportunity to do so. Yeah, I was only here for a few months, and I was already hearing, oh, don't go to New Haven, it's really bad. Don't go to this and that. And I'm like, oh my God, look at your parks, look at your hiking trails. And they're like, no, it sucks. That's, as a first-time Connecticut person,
It's incredible.
I got like slammed with.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a matter of not changing someone's opinion, but rather just getting them out, but then kind of like changing the view of things.
Yeah, I went to Italy with my family for a vacation. I'd never been there before. And I met people, and I'm in Italy. I think it's beautiful. It's like wine. You see the hills and this and that, and farms everywhere. And it's just, to me, it was gorgeous. And then the driver that I had, his name was, I forget his name now. We had 4 drivers. I think 3 of them had the same name. It was like Fabrizio or something. And
it's Paulie and then all their wives are named Marie.
no, not in
Good
Italy.
fellas.
It was like
Good fellas.
Fabrizio. The guy's like, one of the guys says, I've been to the United States. And I was like, where you been? New York? New York City? Miami? And he goes, no. He goes, I went to Yosemite. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. He's like, we don't have parks in Italy. We don't have the wilderness. We don't have the Appalachian Mountains. Like, we got that across the street. East Rock is beautiful, right? You could see it from District. Like, we have a river behind us. Like, they don't have that stuff. And yet we forget. We take it for granted, right? We take New Haven for granted. There's some crime. Who cares? Like, honestly, I've been here for years. No one's ever said shit to me. It's everywhere. There's lines everywhere. There's traffic everywhere. There's crime everywhere. There's something happening everywhere. It just depends on how they highlight it, right? We're just small, so we get caught up in it.
Yeah.
So it is your view, right? For me, my daughter, it was a beautiful view, right? I told you about her view. It was like we got 4 seasons. She'll go there. She'll be like, Dad, look at the architecture. And then we're going to go get one of those acai bowls, and then she's like, they got poke bowls in New Haven. She's like, let's go to New Haven and get some poke bowl. She loves sushi. You got diversity, you got food, you get new foods first, you get, you get all this great stuff. She'll tell you about the Peabody Museum and like the fact, like what they have there. You know, even the school, like Yale is taken for granted. The first use of chemotherapy on a human patient is here, right? We all strive to, like, this whole month is about breast cancer awareness. And like one of the ways to get rid of cancer is chemotherapy, and it was first tested on a human being in this city, in this state. Let's take it above New Haven, right? That's something to be proud of, right? And they're coming up with all types of things. How many of you have heard of 23andMe? The DNA testing, right? That's how I know all this stuff about myself. That was founded by a Yaley. Pinterest, Yaley. FedEx, Yale. Like, they're really smart people here. So all you got to do, I didn't go to Yale. I got a crazy network in Yale because of New Haven, right? So if you just lean in a little bit to where you're from, you'll meet people, and they don't want to just hang out around Yaleys. They want to be around everybody. They want to. So we have natural resources and things and people and stuff happening, but it's the view. Remember what I said in the beginning? It was like, it depends on what you want, the lens you want to look through. It's going to look really weird on camera.
It's great. That's a great wrap on it, right? It depends on what you want to look through. That's a perfect wrap for your whole conversation.
Yeah.
So we're a little over. November 28th, we will have Jeff Hittner with us. Jeff is the founder of IBM's sustainability practice. I've known Jeff since his mid-20s. Jeff is now the founder and CEO of Project X in Manhattan, helping people redefine what it means to have a career, and specifically what it means to have a career that's aligned with your purpose. Like I said, I've known Jeff since he was, a kid. He's 42. He's younger than me, so he's still a kid in my books. But Jeff will come up and be with us, and the conversation there will be on breaking through your notion of livelihood, how you really, so it'll be a much narrower conversation, much more personal conversation about how do you break through your notion of what it means to make money, right? A livelihood, a job, a career, while actually using your life for what you think is worth using it for. That's November 28th, and then we got some really interesting people next year as well. David, deeply appreciate your taking the time to do this. I know there's a lot of pull on your time. I have covertly kept you. So David actually has another event after this, right? Like after this grueling 2 hours of forcing you to talk. So I really appreciate your taking the time to be here and
My pleasure.
delaying that. Yeah.
So a couple things I could ask of you guys, since I got you captive. Number one is, if you want to change, demand more of the people that you elect, right? This is not a Republican Democratic type of a thing. This is if you're going to give somebody the right to govern you, then demand what you want of them, right? And I gave you an example with the trains, right? Like I no longer will allow this type of stale thinking in this state, and I'm not going to pay for it. I don't have no problem with the taxes. If you take the concept of taxes and you think, a friend of mine said this to me the other day, and I was like, that is genius, right? How many of you use any type of software as a service? Everybody, right? If you thought of taxes as services as a subscription, you wouldn't care, right? Education, you want to upgrade your education, you want to choose your school, you don't want zoning, you can upgrade to a different subscription. Right? You'd pay a little bit more taxes for your family, for this, that, whatever, if you could do it. I think we have to, if it's our money, we have to demand more of it, straight up. You want more? You want a faster train? Faster horses? Then that's what you're going to ask for, and that's what you got to demand for. Other than that, I think you got to do that. That's number one. Number two is, we launched a Holberton School. We're launching. U of Next is opening here, data science academies. The two biggest jobs in the country right now that are open are software engineers and data scientists. In order for us to fill those jobs, we need everyone that's capable and motivated, that wants to work, to try and see if they can get into those programs. Okay? we've brought in programs into this building that tear down the barriers of entry. There's no cost up front, right? There's no human bias, so I can't pick people that look like me or forcefully put women in or forcefully put minorities in, right? It's just, we've taken all that shit away from the table to make it an open playing field. Tell people that this is available. Spread that word so that we can get the numbers that we can get, because if we don't get the software engineers, Connecticut will die. Like that, I promise you. We absolutely have to get those people to deal with the digital transformation that we're going through as a nation, or we're in big trouble. Because there's 7,500 open jobs in Connecticut right now for computer skills. 2,500 of those are software engineers. 400 of those are entry level. And that sounds bad. And there's 600 new jobs every single year that are opening up in Connecticut, according to the government. I think it's worse. Nationally, it's 550,000 open jobs and 1 million in 2 years. Okay, which means that our pipeline is so far behind, right? Our K through 12 pipeline, our college pipeline is so far behind that we're not likely to get out of those woods for 20 years. 60% of H-1B visas, people coming in from other countries, are for computer science positions, and Trump is shutting those off, which means he's basically saying we've got to fight. We've got to put it forward. So we put that together to get people in there. We need more applications. We need more people to go into these programs in order to fill these slots, to fill these jobs, to get companies to stop leaving. So I ask you, as a favor to me, if you want to see Connecticut be more successful, tell people that if they're down and out, if they got a job that they don't love, just try the application. It's free, and if it doesn't work, it didn't cost you anything but a little bit of time. And if it works and you get in, and if the computer selects you to go in, because it's not me, then you come out and you probably will get a job, because there's jobs out there. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is, be happy. You know, don't shit where you eat. You know that saying? It's really about sleeping with people where you work. But I'm going to change.
Don't do that either.
I know. But I said it the other day, and I realized that it's the same thing. It's the same concept, right? Right? Connecticut's where you eat. Be happy with it. Promote it. Scream it from the top of mountains. You know, I created this concept. I saw a piece of data that says that people that are 33 to 45 come back, don't leave as fast as everyone else in the state. It's the only age cohort that doesn't leave, and I realized that's because it's people that when you're young, you leave because you want to leave the nest and you want to see what the cool stuff is, New York, Boston, LA, and then when you realize that you want family and good quality of life, you come back. So I call that the Connecticut comeback. Well, it's a double entendre, right? The Connecticut comeback is also about the state making a comeback. We have the second highest number of patents in the United States of America. California and this little rinky-dinky state between New York and Boston, Connecticut, has the most patents in the United States. We were innovative. We have a ton of stuff. We've got submarines. We got helicopters. Command took the rotation, the vibration out of a helicopter. The Command Aeronautics. Then they went into acoustic guitars, and the guy figured out how to play an acoustic guitar through a speaker. You know that? Did you know that?
Yeah.
Like, we got a lot of innovation here. Like, when you hear good stuff, scream it. Put a hashtag behind it. The Connecticut comeback. Let's get more people to come back to the state that they went to school in, where they grew up in. Let's tell everybody what good stuff is happening here, and demand that the people that we elect make sure that stuff happens. So those are the things that I ask of you, and that's it.
Go ahead.
Cool.
Cool.
You don't have to put that in
Thank
the
you all.
video. You can edit all that out.
No. You gotta use that for your campaign ad when you run in 2020.
And stop that. Me and Kanye.
You and Kanye, that's it. I didn't get to Kanye. I went easy on that. We had an interesting conversation about Kanye. That's an after hours conversation. Thank you guys for being here. Feel free to hang out and continue talking. We're going to be here for a little while. Hopefully we'll see you on the 28th. Beyond what U of Next is doing, Unstuck and that kind of things, as David said, right outside this door until 10 o'clock, there's a Pecha Kucha going on. You can pop into that. Sign up for the broader district mailing list. There's lots of events going on from a variety of sources. all aimed at just giving you access. Yeah.
Restaurant opens up next month.
Yeah. Fire pits.
Fire
Beer
pits,
garden.
beer garden,
Kayak
amphitheater,
run.
stages.
November 14th.
Holberton has an open house on November 14th.
Yeah. A lot of good stuff. There you go.
We've always got stuff happening here.
That's great.
Always.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll
thank
see you soon. Great. No, thank